Welcome to Homeschool Life. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Adriana.
And we're talking today, a little impromptu conversation about planes of development.
Well, more generally, stages of development. It's a very important topic because a lot of parents are not familiar with this, and it's one of the biggest tools they can have in order to be able to guide and teach their children.
Yes, it's like you're observing them as they go through those stages of life and stuff. Because at one time they used to think that, children were just small versions of the adults, and there was no cognitive difference between a child and an adult other than knowledge.
Yeah, these are stages of development that actually it's about experts studying children and how they learn and how they absorb the world around them. Okay, as they grow and their brain gets fully developed and then become an adult.
Sure.
And so the reason why it's important because a lot of people have struggles with teaching their children or having their children learn in a positive and way that is successful.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot of time it's because they're missing the mark. They don't know why the children is struggling or why it's not a good idea to teach certain things. Okay, because they're not prepared to receive it.
And one of the struggles of parents is they'll say, "This is so simple. How come you're not understanding it?"
Right.
And really, they're not in that stage yet. And you'll go over that.
That, and also they see behavioral changes, okay, and behavioral changes that they can't really pinpoint to anything. They start looking at things like personality, and I'm thinking it has nothing to do with personality. It's just a developmental stage. And not understanding the problem of that is that someone may give advice to a direction that has nothing to do with solving that particular problem and behavior or learning.
Or they might label their kid, he's just difficult, or she's just not applying herself, or whatever kind of excuse that they have for trying to explain what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So these stages of development were developed by psychologists, correct?
Sure. You have Piaget, and you have many others. You've got Vygotsky, and he's one of the latest ones, but he differs greatly from Piaget and Montessori and stuff like this. And actually, Piaget got most of his information and ideas on planes of development, and he didn't call them planes, but levels of development from Montessori. So it's actually, and he developed it a little further. He was actually a student of Montessori herself.
Well, he wasn't a direct student, but he had received Montessori education.
Well, that's what I mean.
Right. So, what are some of the aspects that are covered in the stages of development? And those are that children, depending on where they're at, age-wise, there's different things that you have to assess. Their physical, their social, emotional, and intellectual levels. What's a better way to, explain that? It's not only levels, but where they stand. It's what they need physically, socially, emotionally, and intellectually. And those are four things that vary depending on where they're at. And in other words, it'll help you gauge where they're at and basically what they actually need. Okay? Because sometimes they need more of the social aspect, and sometimes they need more of the emotional.
Sure.
And then sometimes it's the intellectual as well.
Well, why don't we go over like one of the planes and see where we're at?
Yeah, so I developed a chart that actually explains specifically Montessori's 4 planes of development. Okay, for those of you who don't know Maria Montessori, she developed her method, and it's been around for more than 100 years, so it's been pretty solid. And also a lot of neuroscience has been supporting a lot of her observations and work on how children learn. Anyway, her 4 planes of development, there's 4 obviously, and I'll give you the range and what happens in each one. I have covered this before, but after I review it again, we're going to delve a little bit deeper, okay, to have a better understanding. So the first plane of development has to do with children ages from birth to 6 years of age. And so what happens in this plane as a whole during that whole age range is there's an explosion into the exploration of the physical world. Okay, and also that particular plane, each of these planes is divided into 2, the first half and the second half. So the first half of this first plane is basically the child trying to internally answer the following questions, like, where am I? What is this world? How do things work? Okay.
And from birth to 6 years, I mean, they're using their hands, and I mean, babies use their mouth to discover the world around them and stuff like that.
So they're in discovery mode for the first time. That's why they have to touch everything. That's why they put things in their mouth. That's their way to sense the world and make sense of it. And then they need the parents as guides to tell them, this is dirt, this is water, this is what we can do with it. And so that's part of the interaction that they have with the world around them.
Well, just like with a toddler, you can introduce them to a caterpillar, and they have no necessary fear of that, and they'll actually let it crawl on their finger, and they're just amazed. Now, in another plane of development, there might be a lot more things going on in them. There's fear, trepidation, and etc.
Yeah, but let's concentrate on this first plane first,
Sure.
so they can understand. So on the second half is basically still the same thing, but what they're doing is they're consciously refining that knowledge that they absorbed in the first half. So making more sense of it, like towards the end of it, which is 6 years of age.
Okay, so it's birth to 6 years is the first plane.
Right. So by them, in other words, they're into full discovery mode. This is why you'll see the kids. Well, on the second half, you can find that they actually bring home rocks, leaves, all these little things that they found in nature because they're fascinated with it.
Sure.
You know, they find everything interesting. It's like, oh, this little piece of sparkly paper. It's a wonderful thing. They're just in awe with it all, you know?
Oh, yeah. And they'll come and they'll bring it to you.
Yes.
And they're surprised that you don't want to keep it.
Exactly. So this is the thing. And so what's good about that is that once you know that, then you understand they need to touch everything. So a lot of the things is sensorial stuff. What are some things that they can touch with their hands? Puzzles. Being outside in the dirt is a magnificent thing for them.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is this is how, let me point out something about how the interaction may go between a child in this level and an adult. So the child brings in some sort of leaf or a pine cone or something like this, and they show it to the parent, and the parent's busy doing whatever, you know, breakfast or whatever.
Adult stuff,
yeah,
right?
Adult stuff. And it's like, Mommy, look at this. And they hear, that's nice, hon.
Or set it aside, it's dirty.
Yeah, or something like that. And what the child's actually telling you is, I've discovered something I've never seen before. I want to share it with you, my parent, my caregiver.
Exactly.
I'm excited about this, and I want you to be excited too.
Exactly.
So the parent needs to connect at that moment, because
Yes.
that's where that work of bonding comes from. And you have to really train your mind not to think like an adult, but to think of like somebody who's discovering something.
You have to get to their level, but with your wisdom, kind of embrace it more.
Right.
So,
and this is actually a huge disconnect in parenting. I mean, what the parent needs to do is stop what they're doing. I said, "Hang on, let me take a look at that." And they look at us as, this is amazing. What do you like about it?
Exactly.
Right?
And so one of the things that I noticed with our child is she was fascinated with the insects.
Oh,
You
yeah.
would watch the ants, crawl around and so on. And so that to me was I gotta seize this opportunity. She's finding the insects fascinating. So what did I do? For example, I went to the library and got books.
Sure.
I got books about ants, books about all kinds of things that I thought she would be fascinated with. And because she's an advanced reader, it was easy for me to use that way of give her the resource for her to independently go and read the book.
Right. Then that's when your observation of where she's at compared to where the planes of development are, you made that connection.
Right. Now, if your kid is too young or is not an advanced reader, then you can find a book that you think will be fascinating, and you read that book with your child.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Or basically, you can choose another method. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, some parents might say, well, okay, I don't want them bringing in, very dirty things. But, okay, here's where your finesse as a parent needs to happen. And that is, you make the amazement happen. Mm-hmm. That you're fascinated with what they've brought you to look at and examine. And then you can say, this is fantastic. But it really is, maybe we should get something under it so the dirt doesn't drop onto the carpet.
Exactly.
But show your enthusiasm for what they discovered first.
Right.
And then you can kind of say, oh, let's put it in a jar.
Exactly.
Right? Or let's save it for a while. And eventually you can toss it out when they're done, and that's another story altogether.
Right. And so that's another thing. What you explain is something that goes with the prepared environment, right?
Yes.
If you have issues of them bringing in those things into the bedroom, for example, which makes sense. You don't want to bring all this dirt
Sure.
into the bedroom, obviously. So you prepare an environment, maybe somewhere in the kitchen. You have maybe a terrarium, right? This is what we did. We put a terrarium together.
I can't believe how many lizards we caught.
So we caught lizards and put them in there. We caught frogs. Of course, we didn't let them die. We have to let them go because they can't be kept in captivity, right? So, but those are the examples that you can do with things at that stage. You have to seize the moment, be at their level, and take the opportunity to teach them something and connect with them at the same time. So the end result of that play is the aspects that are affected in development are everything: physical, social, emotional, and intellectual. So you're meeting a lot of their needs if you're aware of that plane.
And that's where you connect. That's where you connect. You connect with the physical, social, and emotional and intellectual needs of the child. Connecting with them, like this is an amazing thing you're showing me. Whatever they're discovering.
Right. So you need to fulfill that discovery stage where they want to learn everything about the world around them.
And this is actually the basis of your, for lack of a better term, authority as a mentor. Because that's where that bond happens, where they see you and you can interact with them and say, let me give you some more information about this.
You're facilitating their curiosity, basically.
Correct.
That's what you're doing.
And you're becoming a source for information.
Correct.
So anytime they have a question, they'll come to you. Now, this is the basis of all the rest of the planes, and as they go more and more advanced.
Now, this first plane is very important because it's the foundation for the rest. Okay, if you satisfy that first plane, then you're going to be on the right path on satisfying the next three. Okay, so and one last thing I want to discuss on the first plane, that birth to 6 years of age, is that boys and girls can be very different. Okay, one of the things that boys stand out more is that physical and social, that having to need to move around more, need to play more, be more physical. The rough and tumble, they need to have that. And if moms are not comfortable with wrestling with their boys, and that's where dads have to come in.
That's right.
Right? They have to satisfy. If a kid is showing signs that they want to be rough with things, maybe they're throwing things, maybe they need more of that physical thing, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
What, you want to add anything?
Well, with our daughter, it was there wasn't much of the rough and tumble, but there was like a little bit of a daredevil type thing. I mean, I'd have her stand on my hand, right, and balance. I wouldn't let her
She likes
draw.
to wrestle with me too.
Yeah, and now she does.
Now she's then right now she does that too. But anyway, but yeah, they need that all those things, that physical contact as well, trying to see where they are in strength, what they can do with their bodies, right?
So yeah, it's okay. So we're going to the next one.
So wait, well, and another thing, sorry, one last thing, and that's why you prepare the environment. If you obviously don't want your kids throwing things in the house because they'll break something, then you have to have that outside time. That
Right.
outside play time becomes crucial. And with boys, you're gonna need a lot of that. They need to run around. They need to throw the ball. They need to kick it. They need to, whatever, throw dirt into the sky and then realize that wasn't a good idea.
Everything is new to them.
Yes.
And everything that they find new and interesting, you actually probably will see it as boring because it's boring, it's everyday stuff. But this is the first time they've seen it.
Yes, and
in
the
their
thing
life.
is, once they get satisfied, they'll move on to the next thing.
That's right.
Okay, a kid who likes to throw things is not going to throw all the time. They need to get that out of their system.
Right.
They say, I want to know what it is to throw this versus throwing that other thing. It's like physics right there.
Well, they're developing a very ancient skill of cause and effect that our ancestors used to catch prey. Mm-hmm. They have, especially boys. They went out to hunting, and the genetic information that has been passed down for that is undeniable.
Right, and the thing is, that's your opportunity there. Even if they're little, let's do a physics experiment. This is going to be fun. Okay,
That's right.
Let's mark. Let's do a distance thing. And let's see how far we can throw these different items.
That's right.
I mean, for goodness sakes, when you are down to their level, oh, my parent is throwing these things now. Okay, this is fun. You're helping them get it out of their system, okay? And then you can go home and say, okay, you saw that by throwing something, you can throw it really far, right?
And with a fun activity like that, right? You can start interjecting a rule in there,
right?
And by saying, okay, we're going to throw it at this target. Now, don't miss and hit this.
Right.
Make sure you hit the target, because the other things like that can break. You don't say, don't do this. You say, oh, if you do that, it'll break.
Right. And so, and then another situation, if you're at home and you're seeing that they want to throw, it's like, oh, let's hold on to that. Let's do it outside. It'll be more fun.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's do the throwing outside because I have an idea. We're going to bring all these things and we get to throw them together.
Sure.
And so this is how you help them get over that stage.
Right.
Okay? All right, that's the first plane of development.
Okay, from
birth to 6 years.
Now
the
6 to 12.
Plane number 2, which is ages 6 years to 12 years. Okay, the elementary school years, right?
This is the most exciting, in my opinion.
So this is the explosion into the exploration of the intellectual world. Okay, again, there's 2 halves. The first half is they're focusing on increasing their knowledge about the world. They have unlimited questions about every aspect of life, including the social rules of society. The child's intelligence becomes extroverted. It is the age of imagination where unlimited possibilities about the world are imagined. The second half involves the refinement of the knowledge, reasoning, and thinking that emerged on the first half. Okay?
So first is the discovery, and then the next one is refinement.
The child is supposed to become extroverted, okay? If it didn't happen, it's because it didn't get all the discovery out of their system on the first plane. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's why it's so important that you get the first plane right, because then they get all that discovery out of their system. They've touched everything, they've discovered, and now they're ready for the intellectual aspect of that.
Sure.
Okay. So the elementary years, a lot gets studied at that stage, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So our daughter's still in that end of the elementary. Actually, she's more in the middle school, but yeah, like I said, it's because there's 4 things being affected: the physical, social, emotional, intellectual. That those things are adjusted differently.
This is where they start having elements of where do I fit in the world.
Beginning to, yes. Yes, that's why they say social rules of society. So they're still questioning things. It's like the first plane was discovery, wanting to know what this all means. The second one is now trying to fit it all together. How do we express it, right? There's math, there's English, right?
And where do I fit in the physical world? We'll get to the next plane where it talks about fitting into the societal world. But the first one is, what does this all mean? You know, and that's where
what is all this?
Yeah, right? What is all this?
And then the second plane is adding the intellectual aspect to that. It's like now you have subjects now that explain things further. You have mathematics, you have science, and things like that. They learn about the scientific method and all. So that's more in the intellectual aspect of it. So the end result of this plane is the child begins to make sense of the cosmic order of the world. The child understands how it is all connected and the importance of our existence. The child has a broader outlook on life and is open-minded. So, So I remember now. On the Montessori world, they actually have, what do they call, these great lessons.
Yes.
Okay? And what they do is, the purpose of that is they give them the big picture. Okay, how did it all start, the universe and everything, and then they focus on each aspect. How did the Earth get formed?
Yes, okay. First the Earth cooled.
Exactly. They do a lot of timelines where they explain the evolution of life. Okay, plants and animals, they both go through that as well, and also the history of communication, writing, the history of math, numbers. So basically, they give them the big picture of where it all started and how we got to where we are now. And the reason why that is good to teach is because then when you delve into the subjects, they have more meaning. Now I know why we're studying math, because this is their journey that we took.
Right. They've been exposed to the big picture timeline of, okay, like, let's say the history of writing, right? And you'll see in Montessori the huge timelines, and they look at the first writings and how it advanced through the centuries.
Exactly.
And so when they start delving into the really particulars on, you know, subject verb agreement and stuff like this in the next plane, they have an understanding of the broad picture.
The importance of it all.
Yes.
Right? That is actually a gift. It's such something of great value to us in our existence. And that's why we continue to study it. That's why we pass on this knowledge down the line.
And that gives you a touchstone. That gives a parent a touchstone to say, do you remember this and this and this? This is where this was discovered. This is where this was applied.
Right.
You know, and so once you have a big picture, you can always refer back to it. And that's the beauty of this building of knowledge in this method.
Exactly. As an example, when you teach children the English language, you have to teach them grammar, word study, and all these things that if you don't give them the big picture, those things can be boring or uninteresting. And so so by giving them the big picture, they understand that at the end you have these wonderful writers of major literature and classics, and it kind of gives them the point that when you master these things, grammar, word study, you can actually become a great writer and write these wonderful things. These are the basics, the foundations you need to become that, or to be able to do those type of works.
So anyway,
that's the second plane of development. The third plane of development, okay, and the third and fourth, the last two are already into the rite of, actually not quite, actually it is, the rite of passage, actually.
So it was ages 12 to 18?
Actually 13 to 18.
Sure,
to
sure.
fix that. It's 13 years of age to 18 years of age.
So,
and what
there's,
happens there...
Of course, two halves.
Yeah, the whole thing in that plane has to do with an explosion into the exploration of social relationships. Okay, now it's the social relationship that stands out the most in this plane of development.
Now, let me interject real quick. Remember what I said about how you've established yourself as a mentor. Okay, now this is where it all pays off. You've already established yourself as a mentor and a source for information, and this is the parent-child bond that you've been developing from birth to 12 years.
Exactly.
And so now this is where they start relying on you and not their peers for answers.
Correct.
So go ahead, please.
So, well, let me go back a little bit. On these planes of developments, I do have a little bit of an overlap over the years, because I can have plane 2 say 6 to 12 years, and then plane 3 still say 12 years to 18 years. That's okay, because it needs to be an overlap, because some kids transition sooner than others.
Sure.
Okay, this is not like set in stone, like because they're this age, this is where they need to be. No, this is where they could be or they might be, but it gives you a guide of what to look for. Okay, so again, there's two halves to this plane number 3. The first half, sorry, is very dramatic and intense entrance into early adolescence and trying to understand the social relationship part of life. Okay, the early teenage years, everyone remembers that, right? Very emotional, very dramatic, but not something to be made fun of. Okay, they're having issues with their emotions. They're also having issues where they fit socially. Okay, the second half is the time for refinement, processing, and clarification of the individual's identity in society. Okay, where do I fit in with society? Where do I fit in with my family even? Okay, so by knowing that, now you know why they can be so intense. Okay, they need more understanding from us. They don't need us to they don't need us to make fun of their emotional outbursts.
No, their entire being is being changed. Their physical makeup is being changed through puberty, and because of all the hormones and stuff like this, feelings and everything are incredibly intense.
The bodies, I forgot. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, there's a lot of metamorphosis that happens, especially, well, we know with girls. Our daughter is starting to experience that.
Sure.
And there are some emotional ups and downs with that. And so when you're aware of it, there's times where a parent needs to be more empathetic.
Right. And this is also a very good time for the father to take more of an interest and more of a presence. I mean, they should already be doing so.
Right.
But this is where usually they transition away from mom and into dad.
Right. That's for boys you're talking about. This is the rite of passage that I'm talking about, where on the second plane, they already know how to pursue anything that has to do with intellect. Okay, they know how to pull their resources and know how to get the answers to their questions. This third plane is basically this person is turning is a young adult.
Yes, it is.
And so now the boys need to learn how to be men, and the girls need to learn how to be women.
Right.
And so.
And this is also another good time when you want to introduce the idea of for girls, where is their template for finding a mate?
Exactly.
You know, and so this is where you can, as a father, you can say to your daughter, says, I can help you find one, because at when you're going through a relationship and you're starting to date and stuff like this, your emotions are very intense.
Exactly.
Okay, come and you can say, I can help you with my knowledge and my wisdom to help you find the right guy.
Exactly. And so supposedly at the end of the stage, they should have mastered how to deal with their emotions.
Sure.
Okay, and how to deal with relationships as well.
But these are, again, this is a part of a discovery, just even in the first plane. They're now in a new discovery, finding out about all these emotions and hormonal changes. That basically, what those hormonal changes do is sabotage a lot of decision making.
And right now they want to be more around their peers in a way, because they want to socialize. They
Sure.
want to see, I want to see how I fit in with these other kids my age or close to my age or whatever. They want to be around others.
And this is when you can introduce the idea of the chaperone, right? The guide that's there, but also gives them some space,
some independence. As far as the intellect, they can pursue higher academics. At this point, they should be independent enough to where if they want to learn more about specific, more advanced subjects, this is their choice. They should have the ability, be able to pursue those things on their own.
Right. And as far as education is concerned, like in their homeschooling, is they should be already self-starting.
Yes, you shouldn't have to push. They should already have a good idea of what they like and what they want to do, and now they have acquired a new freedom to where they can explore on their own a little bit more, and just use the parents to consult certain things,
Right.
and discuss certain things, but not being shown everything,
Yeah, in traditional schools, they're told what to do, when to do it all the time, and it's like, and then
They need
again,
permission for everything.
permission for everything. But really, in actuality, what they really need is they need to be able to make mistakes, right? So at this stage, a guide of the parent, traditionally called a teacher, obviously, but we like to call them guides because that's more descriptive of what we're actually doing. They should only just be kind of nudging them here and there down the path of, okay, mom, or okay, dad, what do I need for,
Well, they have an idea. I know that I need these things. Is there anything else you can think of
Sure.
that I'm missing? So that, in other words, they already know most of it. They just want your expertise and wisdom to see if they missed anything.
Yeah, or now our daughter says, I think I need to study some more math. I think I need to study some more English.
They're self-driven, basically.
Right, and that happens a lot. It's like I know I'm missing something, and that's when the parent has already looked at what the state requirements are for education and stuff like this. So they have a general idea of where, and they can say, you know what, you're going to take your state test on this time.
And that's a separate issue. The state requirements is what's tying us down, really. But it should be also geared to what their interests are. Okay?
Of course. And that's, we can have another discussion about how the planes of development and Montessori and the homeschooling mesh with state requants and all, and state tests and all that. That's just for another discussion, but I just wanted to bring it up.
So what's the end result of this third plane of development? The child questions and challenges everyone and everything in his quest to finalize his understanding of the rules of society and where he fits in it. So this is why the teenage years are, for some parents, it's a drag, because the kids are challenging everything. They think they're being rebellious and whatnot.
And they're really not. They're seeing where they fit into this social order.
They're also testing you to see how consistent you actually are, or whether it's BS, right?
Yes. Basically, they're saying, all of my life you've told me that this is the
template.
This is the template of being a good person.
Right.
All right. I see that you're not doing this.
Yes.
Okay.
How come, right?
How come, Dad, that you get to do this and I don't? Or You see, mom seems to get away with this, and when I do the same thing, you complain to me.
Exactly.
You know?
So that becomes a trigger point for parents.
And
if they're not
if
they're not aware of the stages of development that's happening.
The parent who's not aware of how to peacefully communicate with their children, usually this ends up in conflict. Yes. Yes. Jinx. But the thing is you have to understand where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And you have to say, if you have to say, yeah, you're right, and admit to that, that actually strengthens the relationship.
Right. You can even be another thing to strengthen that trust is say, you know what? Yes, this is something that I've struggled with because I was raised this way. So
Right.
yes, I know I want you to be better than me. This is why I'm teaching you these things. I don't want you to have to struggle with it with your own children, with yourself, and so I want you to be a better human being than what I am.
And usually, in a little bit older in that third plane, you're going to have to, if you use that one, where you say, "I want you to be better than me because I made mistakes." You need to outline. This is where I made the mistake. Okay, this is the outcome of doing this, because then you not only give them the reason, you also give them the whys.
Right, and of course, don't use it as a crutch either. I mean,
no,
I'm gonna be under the impression that as the adult, you're gonna still try to overcome that struggle that you have. Okay, don't stay don't stagnate with that. You need to show your kid that you're actually actively trying to overcome that struggle that you have.
What you're trying to portray is a template of integrity.
Yes.
Okay, and that you have mentored them correctly.
You have to show them how to succeed and how to overcome struggles that they face in life.
That's right. So, okay.
Great. So that leads us to the last plane of development, the fourth one, which is for kids 18 years to 21 years.
Young adults.
So this is the last stage before they're actually full-fledged adults, right? Because at 21 years of age, you're still wet behind the ears, right?
As they say, yes.
So you're still, even though your body is an adult and everything, you're still not a full-fledged adult with experience and wisdom, obviously. So what happens in this fourth plane? There's an explosion into the exploration of adult life with all its challenges. The first half is emergence into young adulthood, trying to figure out their place in society. The second half is the child or older child, young adult, melts together. Never mind. Everything melts together to help the mature young adult clarify his purpose and place in life. They're evolving into a person who is a morally, ethically, and socially responsible citizen.
Sure.
So this is the last stage where they can become that moral and ethical person and be a responsible citizen, and this makes you the best adult. Once you become a full-fledged adult, you have everything you need to be the best human being possible.
Well, that's the we know through society what really happens with a lot of these 18 to 21-year-olds, and can we see what the problems are, what's going on, and the thing is this is when we have a lot of people speculate. Well, he should have been this and should have been that. But you know what? You know what they really need to look at? The past planes of development.
Exactly.
And see what happened.
Or what didn't happen.
Or what didn't happen.
Exactly. What wasn't satisfied in their development.
And if they have been in a situation where they're in an abusive environment, or they're being constantly yelled at or criticized and something like this, what type of child would grow up at 18 and 21 and be ready for society?
Exactly. So these are the kids. Some of these kids are actually the ones in college.
Yeah.
Okay.
What if they didn't have a father figure?
Right. So this and part of their finding what their place in society, they're actually being influenced by society as we speak in their school environment, in their part-time job or whatever. This is why they get sucked in so much into these causes,
Yes.
right? These identity groups, because they're trying to figure out where they fit, so they get sucked into those so easily.
Well, they're kind of almost like stuck in a previous plane.
Exactly. So they're not, because they haven't built that strength yet, they're easily influenced.
Yes.
They don't have that strong foundation where they already know what's a good influence and what's a bad influence for me.
That's because they haven't had the mentorship
Yeah.
all along.
Exactly.
You haven't made that connection with them all along the way from birth to now.
Yep.
Okay, because if you distance yourself, I mean, we have scientific studies talking about 1980s in Romania, and I've wrote an article about that on our website. How isolation and not being with the child actually affects their growth and the brain development.
Yeah.
And so, the fact that this has been a long study, because they were able to follow those children who were adopted out of Ceausescu's Romania, and they followed them all their lives. And even as an adults, those children have very difficult time with attachments.
Exactly.
And so
It's this is why I always say, if you want to do well in parenting or homeschooling, you have to learn about the stages of development. I recommend Montessori's 4 planes of development because it's been proven to be a really good, strong foundation.
yes, if this is all if this is all the tool that you have to understand where your child is at, it's not a bad start.
It is not. It's actually the first thing that I always point people towards, because they're so ignorant about this, and so this is really going to help them understand where their child is and where they need to be in the future.
Sure, and this is very absorbable. Okay, this is not from advanced psychology and stuff like this. This is something that a regular parent can look at and kind of absorb and kind of think about, and they can operate in this.
And then you can focus in deeper and seeing how you can, solve this problem that you have.
Sure.
And see how and in other words, you can actually pinpoint where you need to concentrate on, as
Sure.
opposed to just randomly finding something.
And of course, what is at the center of all this? It's our attention and observation on where your child is at.
Exactly.
Okay, you're engaging in them.
Yes, you have this as your tool, but it's your engagement and your availability in front of your child. It needs to be there all the time, and then you can actually satisfy their developmental needs.
Sure.
Okay, so another thing that I want to discuss, okay, so because it's kind of related, and I don't want to leave it out there, because you kind of need to know this too, so you can succeed with the planes of development, is learning styles. Okay, there's 3 types of learning styles. If you look online, you're gonna see a lot of bogus information. They're going to add a 4th one there, which is reading and writing, which to me is not at all, but these are the main ones. Okay, and going along with the stages of development is really good. The 3 types of learning styles. The first one is the auditory learning style.
Then there's the visual.
There's the visual learning style, and then the kinesthetic learning style. And I'm going to go through each one of these very
quickly.
Very quickly. So, because this is going to help you to address, the things, what you're going to guide and teach to your children. So the auditory learning style, the characteristic is that auditory learners can easily process any information that they hear. An example of that is that students in this category do well in a traditional classroom setting. Okay, that's why auditory learners can do well in school. Okay, if a teacher or guide does lectures in the learning environment and the student is good at processing the information in the form of listening, then it allows the student to be successful in this type of setting. So pretty straightforward. Obviously, if they're good at listening and processing the information that way, they're going to do well in this type of setting, and that includes the traditional classroom setting.
And when you say do well, in other words, they can gain information audibly.
Yes.
Okay, not necessarily that they can function in that environment of public school, right? Because there's a lot of toxicity in that.
It just means that they're successful in that setting.
Yes.
Of processing that information.
Of having a lecture. Now, of course, homeschoolers, they would be able to function at that as well.
Yes, but not necessarily. So let's go through the other types. The visual learning style. The visual learners need visual stimulation in order to process the information being received. Okay, an example is that students in this category actually sometimes do well in a traditional classroom setting. Okay, so if a teacher or guide decides to use visual aids in a learning environment and the student is good at processing the information in the form of pictures or the use of the board, charts, videos, maps, posters, drawings, etc., then it allows this student to be successful in this type of setting. Okay, that means that student is good with the visual learning style.
So why is it sometimes?
Because because the teacher has to decide to use the visual aids.
Okay.
If they don't use the visual aids, then all they're doing is lecturing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so that's why if a teacher only does lecturing, they're only going to appeal to a few students that are good with the auditory learning style. They're going to lose everyone else. Okay, if you add visual aids, that you're going to be able to have the auditory learners, but also the visual learners to be able to keep up.
Right.
Okay, and learn in that setting. All right, the third one. The third one is the kinesthetic learning style. That means that kinesthetic learners need to move in order to process the information being received. Okay, as an example, students in this category do poorly in a traditional classroom setting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If a teacher or guide allows the freedom of movement in a learning environment and the student is good at processing the information when some part of the body is moving, then it allows the student to be successful in this type of setting. Of course, this type of learner is not going to do well in a traditional school setting because you're being told to sit still and not interrupt the lesson, right?
Right.
So that's why these type of learners do very poorly and they don't do very well. They're like the troublemakers in a way because they can't be still.
That's right. And the thing is who typically is in that realm?
Boys.
Now,
boys. So that's why girls can do very well in the traditional school setting, but not the boys.
Now, if it's a Montessori setting where the children are allowed to move around,
yep,
all of the students do well.
So the Montessori environment actually has different things that applies to all these learning styles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's why no matter what type of learning style the child is, they are successful in that Montessori environment.
Because the kinesthetic, they can move around the classroom and they can interact with one student or someone a little bit older, a little bit younger.
So the reason why I point this out is because as you're assessing your child in their different developmental stages, you also have to focus on what type of learner they are. How do they prefer to process the information? And that's going to also give you a sense of calm when they're actually loving what they're learning, what you're giving them. So sometimes it's one or the other. Sometimes it's a combination.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And sometimes is a transition. Maybe a kid did really well as an auditory style, but now they're being more kinesthetic. So this is why you have to be assessing that all the time and adjust that
Right.
learning style that is unique to your child, depending on where they are in that developmental stage.
There's definitely bleed over between different learning styles. I mean, obviously,
Yep.
and of course, one of the things that I've noticed is with our daughter is, what would you consider her in her learning styles?
She's used all three, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things where I was able to just read something to her and she was listening just fine. Sometimes she had to move around while listening.
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes I just gave her a chart and she was able to absorb. So it's like I said, sometimes you have to mix them all. Don't rely on one way. Don't just do it all where they're listening to you all the time, because that's going to get boring really quick.
You know, the one thing I noticed with our daughter, because she reads incredibly fast, is I was reading to her this one thing on a lesson, and she said, "Daddy, you read too slow." I says, "Let me read it." Okay, and I says, "Oh, are you going to read it out loud?" No, let me just read it. So, because she can actually read a lot faster, she can finish a novel in 2 hours easy, you know. And she's been reading fast for a very long time. But the thing is that was so funny, and I didn't have the idea that, oh, she's just trying to get out of something.
Right.
Okay, because I knew that she wanted to learn this stuff, but she's like, "Daddy, you're just reading too slow," and it's because I was reading out loud.
And that's a good thing, is don't get in the way.
That's right.
You need to facilitate so that you have their interest.
Don't interrupt learning.
Don't interrupt learning. Facilitate and make it easier for them to keep going on their own.
And that's what public school does, is at the bell, you interrupt the learning if there's learning happening, and you go to the next subject.
Right.
You know, and it's
And
like,
you know that particular stage of development, the 12 to 18 years, those kids are always wanting to. They don't want to listen to the teacher. They're busy trying to gossip among each other.
I know.
Throwing pieces of paper around with their little notes, right?
Yes, our little pictures of the teacher, whatever.
So exactly. So it all matches up. This is why I cover this, because the planes of development and the types of learning styles really go together, so that you can actually satisfy their developmental needs.
I had a lesson plan for her, and I had a couple of books on the table at breakfast, and one of them was a book of bizarre words that are no longer used anymore, right? And so it got her attention because there was a funny word in there that she just laughed at, and so she read the entire book.
Exactly.
So
she got hooked.
She got hooked, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to give this lesson later because she is focused, and
don't interrupt that.
I'm not going to interrupt that.
No.
And that's the freedom of being a homeschooler. That's what makes homeschooling so far superior in learning and absorbing information.
Yeah, regardless of what you had planned for that day, if you had all these things you wanted to do, and the kid all of a sudden gets focused on that first thing, let them. Don't try to disrupt them because it makes it easier for you to cover the rest. No, they need to dictate to you what they want to learn.
That's right.
If they're focused on that one thing, then suspend the other stuff for another day.
That's right.
Let them go full speed ahead on what they're focused on.
And the thing is this causes a great anxiety with some parents.
Yes.
Okay? Because they're so used to the old system, they've internalized, this is the way we're supposed to learn.
It needs to be this way, and after this is this.
Because that's the way I learn.
We can't stray away from the path.
Right. But see, here's the thing that they don't realize, that the parents don't realize, is you really didn't learn much that method. Because just ask yourself, how much algebra do you remember?
Right.
You know, how much science do you remember under that system?
Not much.
I know. Or history, for that matter.
So basically make it pleasant, make it fun. And the flexibility of homeschooling is, I'm not saying academics is all day. Learning is all day. And it could be learning a skill like cooking or whatever. It doesn't have to be academic driven, and it's all day. You can be at 7 o'clock and say, I want to make cookies, or 7 o'clock and say, I want to read some Shakespeare or whatever. All of a sudden, it's like, let them. It's you don't have these tight schedules anymore. Learning happens at any time, even on the weekends.
That's right. I've had impromptu lessons that I gave Annabelle at bedtime.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, and it's like she just got really interested in something I said, and started asking questions. And when she starts asking questions, I'm obliged. This is my conviction. Is I'm obliged to talk to her about that.
Right.
Okay. And so she's asking questions about the medieval times and how people lived and died and stuff. And I'm going, okay, well, let me go over that. You know, and so she listened intently, and it was almost like a bedtime story, right?
Exactly.
But the thing is, you follow the interest.
Seize the opportunity when it presents itself. It's not going to be planned.
Right.
Okay, because when it's planned all the time, it's boring and it's not fun. So yes, you can set a block of time to address some academics, sure, you know, but they need to be independent to learn any time of the day. Any day of the week. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this and find these to be useful for you. We will have these charts available for you to print on our website.
Yes, and please visit us at homeschoollife.net. Visit us also on their Facebook page and on Twitter under Homeschool Life LLC. And if you get a chance to schedule a session with us,
we'll be glad to help you on your journey.
Yes, one-on-one session with us. And if you want to donate to us, we would appreciate that as well to continue this work.
Yes, we can help you with the homeschooling. We can help you with parenting as well. So just reach out to us.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Bye.